Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku never broke his bones. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The sun was beginning to bleed over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and burnt orange. It was the color of exhaustion. Izuku Midoriya stood amidst the mountains of trash that plagued Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. He was shirtless, his body glistening with sweat and grime, his chest heaving like a bellows. Over the last 10 months, his physique had transformed. The scrawny, hollow-chested boy who had wept in front of the sludge villain was gone. In his place stood a young man carved from effort, his muscles dense and corded, defined by the grueling reality of moving refrigerators, hauling truck tires, and dragging rusted steel beams through the sand. He was ready. Physically, at least. All Might, in his skeletal true form, sat atop a vending machine that Izuku had just dragged 50 meters. The symbol of peace looked at the boy with a swelling sense of pride, but also a hidden, gnawing anxiety. The time for the transfer was approaching. Excellent work, young Midoriya. All Might coughed, a mist of blood escaping his lips which he casually wiped away. You have cleared the entirety of the beach ahead of schedule. Your vessel is prepared. Izuku wiped his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a streak of grease. Prepared, right? Prepared. You seem hesitant, All Might observed, hopping down from the vending machine. Is it the entrance exam? Or the quirk itself? Izuku looked at his hands. They were calloused, scarred from cuts and scrapes, trembling slightly from muscle fatigue. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a notebook, not his usual hero analysis for the future, but a new one. The cover was simply labeled, The Vessel. All Might, Izuku started, his voice cracking slightly before he found his rhythm. You told me that receiving one for all is like receiving a sacred torch, or that I have to clench my butt cheeks and yell smash from the bottom of my heart. All Might gave a thumbs up. Precisely. It is about feeling the power and releasing it, but Izuku flipped the notebook open. The pages were covered in dense scribbles, diagrams of human anatomy, physics equations regarding force distribution, and sketches of engines. I've been thinking about the physics of it. If one for all is a stockpile of power cultivated over 8 generations, the energy output must be astronomical. You change the weather when you punch. You create tornadoes. Indeed. All Might beamed. I'm a sedan, All Might, Izuku said seriously. All Might blinked, his blue eyes widening in confusion. Excuse me? My body, Izuku tapped his chest. Even with this training, compared to you, I'm a sedan. You're a tank. If you take the engine of a tank, no, the engine of a fighter jet, and drop it into a sedan, and then you floor the gas pedal. Izuku turned the notebook around. He had drawn a crude but effective diagram of a car exploding into shrapnel. The chassis tears apart, Izuku whispered. The transmission shatters. The wheels fly off. If I take your power and try to use it the way you use it, at 100% output immediately, my limbs won't just break. They'll explode like firecrackers inside a sealed pipe. All Might went silent. The coastal wind whistled through the newly cleaned beach. The hero had been so focused on building the boy's body to prevent him from dying upon receipt of the quirk, he hadn't fully articulated the danger of using it. He had assumed the boy would naturally regulate it, or that adrenaline would carry him through. But looking at the diagram, the brutal logic of it struck him. So, All Might said, his voice dropping an octave. You believe you cannot use the power? No, Izuku shook his head vigorously. I just can't use it the way you do. I can't be a cannon. A cannon focuses all pressure into a single point for a massive release. I need to be a hydraulic system. Hydraulic? Fluids, Izuku explained, his muttering habit taking over as his eyes lit up. In a hydraulic system, pressure is distributed evenly throughout the liquid. If I treat one for all not as a bomb to be detonated in my fist, but as a fluid, a high-pressure current running through my entire body constantly, I can mitigate the recoil. I shouldn't try to output 100% of the energy. I need to find the valve. I need to open the tap just a tiny bit, maybe 5%, and let it flood my whole system, reinforcing the skin, the muscles, the bones, all at once. Not a spike of power. A flow. All Might stared at the boy. He had chosen Midoriya for his heart, for his heroic spirit. He hadn't expected the boy to deconstruct the metaphysical nature of the quirk with the mind of an engineer before he even possessed it. A flow. All Might tested the word. He transformed, puffing into his muscular form in a cloud of steam. He flexed his arm. I have always used it naturally. Like breathing. But for you, yes, you must not detonate. You must circulate. He plucked a long blonde hair from his head. The rising sun caught the strand, making it glow like gold wire. You have the theory, young Midoriya, All Might said, his grin blinding. Now, let us see if the machine can handle the fuel. Eat this. 3 hours later, the Yue High School gates. The sensation of the hair sliding down his throat had been unpleasant, but the feeling that followed was indescribable. It wasn't immediate. It was a slow, creeping warmth, like swallowing a hot coal that refused to cool down. It settled in the pit of his stomach, a heavy, humming knot of potential energy. Izuku stood at the towering gates of Yue High, the H-shaped structure looming over him like a judge. His stomach churned. It hasn't activated yet, he thought, gripping the straps of his yellow backpack. All Might said it would take a few hours to digest and merge with my DNA. Do I have it? Am I still quirkless? He took a step forward, his foot catching on the lip of the pavement. Gravity took hold, and for a split second, panic flared. He braced for impact. Suddenly, he was floating. Are you okay? A bubbly voice chirped. Izuku blinked, his face inches from the concrete. He floated upright, his feet gently touching the ground. Beside him stood a girl with brown hair in a bob cut, her fingertips pressed together. It's my quirk, she smiled brightly. Sorry for using it without asking, but it would be bad luck to trip before the exam, right? Izuku's brain short-circuited. A girl. A nice girl. Talking to him. Good luck. She waved, skipping off toward the entrance. Izuku stood frozen, his face burning red. But beneath the embarrassment, something else spiked. When he had tripped, for just a microsecond, the heat in his stomach had flared. It had tried to rush to his legs to catch him. He looked at his hand. He closed his eyes and focused on the knot in his stomach. Don't squeeze it, he told himself. Don't force it out. Just let it leak. Like a faucet. Bzzzt. A tiny, almost imperceptible arc of green lightning flickered across his skin, vanishing instantly. It wasn't an explosion. It was a spark. Hey, get out of the way, Deku. The voice was rough, familiar, and laced with nitroglycerin. Katsuki Bakugo walked past him, shoulders hunched, glaring at the world. Keikaken, Izuku stammered, stepping aside. Bakugo paused, glancing back with narrowed crimson eyes. He sniffed the air, looking at Izuku with a strange expression. You didn't flinch. What? Usually you flinch when I walk by. You look different. Bakugo scoffed, turning away. Don't think just because you didn't trip, you stand a chance. I'm going to crush this exam. Izuku watched him go. He unclenched his fist. He hadn't flinched because, for the first time in his life, the fear of Bakugo was drowned out by the overwhelming volume of the power humming beneath his ribs. The orientation hall, present Mick's voice was loud enough to rattle teeth, even without his quirk fully active. The written exam had been difficult, but manageable. Izuku's obsessive studying of hero laws and general academics had paid off. But now, the real test was beginning. 3 different types of faux villains. Present Mike shouted, gesturing to the screen. As the pro hero explained the point system, 1-pointer, 2-pointer, 3-pointer, Izuku's pen flew across his notebook. Robots. Non-biological enemies. That means no holding back on force, but they'll be made of metal and carbon fiber. Hard targets. Punching metal breaks human bones. Hydraulic theory, he reminded himself. If I punch with just my arm breaks. If I punch with my legs, hips, back, and shoulder, reinforcing the kinetic chain with a 5% energy spread, I become a battering ram. Excuse me. A tall boy with glasses stood up, his hand chopping the air like a blade. May I ask a question? The boy Tenya Ida proceeded to dissect the handout, pointing out a 4th robot type not mentioned in the presentation, and then turned to scold Izuku for his muttering. You with the curly hair. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here on a sightseeing trip, you should leave immediately. The auditorium fell silent. Eyes bored into Izuku. In the past, he would have shrunk into a singularity of shame. But the heat in his stomach was a constant reminder. I have All Might's power. I am not a tourist. I am analyzing the enemies, Izuku said, his voice trembling but audible. To figure out the most efficient way to disable them without unnecessary damage. Ida blinked, surprised by the response. He adjusted his glasses. Efficiency. I see. He sat down. Okay. Examinee 7111 is correct. Present Mike yelled. The fourth robot is a zero-pointer. Think of it like a hurdle or a trap. There's no point in fighting it, so just run away. Can I get a yeah? Silence. Battle Center B. The gates to the urban simulation city were massive. The examinees gathered in a cluster, stretching and checking their gear. Izuku stood in his green tracksuit, feeling woefully underdressed compared to some of the students wearing armor or support gear. He saw the nice girl, Uraraka, standing near the back, looking nervous. He took a step toward her, wanting to wish her luck, but Ida blocked his path. That girl appears to be trying to focus, Ida said sternly. Are you planning to distract her again? Are you taking this seriously? I'm taking this seriously, Izuku said, his eyes hardening. He looked at the massive gates. He closed his eyes. Image training. Visualize the egg. No, not an egg. Visualize the pump. He imagined his heart as the engine. The power of one for all was the oil. He visualized the oil flowing out of the reservoir, filling the pipes of his veins. Not too much pressure, just enough to stiffen the hoses, to make the machine hum. Focal. The veins in his arms glowed faintly red. A subtle, rhythmic crackle of green energy traced across his skin, vanishing under his tracksuit. The air around him seemed to vibrate. And start. President Mick's voice boomed from the tower. The other examinees froze, confused. What's wrong? There are no countdowns in real battles. Go! 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 While the others processed the command, Izuku moved. He didn't run, he launched. The 5% distribution flooded his legs. The concrete beneath his red sneakers cracked in a spiderweb pattern, and he shot forward like a bullet train. The wind whipped his hair back, tearing a gasp from his throat. Too fast. His perception struggled to keep up with his velocity. He was passing the gate before the others had taken their first step. He skidded around the first corner of the mock city, his sneakers smoking. A robot, a one-pointer, a unicycle-style drone with menacing red eyes, rolled out of an alleyway. Target acquired. It lunged. Izuku's instinct screamed at him to cover his face. But his training screamed louder. Move. He stepped inside the robot's guard. The world seemed to slow down. He could see the hydraulic piston of the robot's arm extending. Don't punch it, he told himself. It's steel. You are flesh. He channeled the energy into his right leg. He pivoted on his left foot, swinging a roundhouse kick. But he didn't aim for the armored plate. He aimed for the joint, the exposed cabling connecting the wheel to the torso. Smash! He whispered, his shin connected. The sensation was jarring, a heavy thud that rattled his teeth, but the result was spectacular. The metal sheared. The robot flipped into the air, its wheel severed completely, and crashed into a wall, sparking and deactivating. Izuku landed, panting. He checked his leg. His shin throbbed, a bruise already forming, but the bone was whole. He wiggled his toes. It works. It actually works. 1 point, he muttered. A grin, wild and terrified, split his face. I have 1 point. The observation room. The room was dark, illuminated by dozens of screens showing the chaos of the various battle centers. The teachers of Yuri watched with critical eyes. This year's batch looks promising, Midnight purred, watching a student create acid. There's good mobility in Center C, Ectoplasm noted. But look at Center B, Sniper pointed a laser at a screen. That kid. The green one. On the screen, Izuku was a blur. He wasn't overpowering the robots like some of the strength-based quirks. He was dismantling them. He used his small size to slip between their attacks, He used their own momentum against them. He was tearing wires, smashing sensors, and kicking joints. He fights like a martial artist, Vlad King grunted. But that speed, it's an emitter type? Or transformation? He hasn't used a flashy move yet, Midnight noted. Just raw physical enhancement. But look at his face. He's thinking. In the back of the room, Toshinori Yagi, All Might, gripped the railing until the metal groaned. He's doing it, All Might thought, tears pricking his eyes. He's not breaking. He's adapting. He listened to me, no, he improved on me. However, the small mouse bear dog principal, Nizu, sat in his high chair, his paw hovering over a red button. Combat ability is only one side of the coin. A hero must also shine when the odds are impossible. Nizu slammed the button. Release the gimmick. Battle Center be 12 minutes in. Izuku was exhausted. Even at 5%, the constant drain on his stamina was immense. His muscles felt like they were filled with lead. He had racked up 38 points. It was a decent score, he hoped, but he couldn't be sure. He stood atop the wreckage of a three-pointer, wiping sweat from his eyes. The city was a mess of destroyed robots and dust. Then, the ground jumped. A deep, resonant boom echoed through the streets. Buildings shook, glass shattering from the windows. From the central plaza, a monstrosity rose. The zero-pointer. It was larger than Izuku had imagined, a titan of green metal that blocked out the sun. Its hand, the size of a bus, slammed into a building, reducing it to rubble. The dust cloud washed over the students. Panic was instant. Run! It's huge! Forget the points, just go! The examinees turned and fled. It was the rational response. Izuku's legs trembled. The primal part of his brain screamed at him to join the stampede. This wasn't a villain. It was a natural disaster made of steel. He took a step back. Ow! A cry of pain cut through the roar of the robot. Izuku froze. He looked back toward the destruction. Through the clearing dust, he saw her. The nice girl. Uraraka. She was pinned under a slab of concrete debris, struggling to free her leg. The zero-pointer was looming over her, its massive treads crushing the pavement as it advanced. She's stuck. The other students were gone. Ida was sprinting away, focused on escape. She's going to die. The thought hit Izuku with the force of a bullet. The fear vanished, replaced by a singular, crystal-clear directive. Save her. The hydraulic valve in his heart slammed open. He didn't think about percentages. He didn't think about the car or the tank. He just let the power flood. Green lightning erupted around him, wilder this time, arcing off his body like a solar flare. He didn't run away. He ran toward the Titan. Hey! He screamed, though the robot couldn't hear him. He reached the girl. The concrete slab was heavy. Without the quirk, he couldn't have moved it. With the quirk, he heaved it aside with a grunt of effort, tossing it like a piece of styrofoam. Can you stand? He yelled. Uraraka looked at him, eyes wide with terror. My ankle, it's twisted. The robot was directly above them now. Its massive fist was raising for a crush attack. Izuku looked up. If he tried to carry her, they wouldn't make it out of the blast zone in time. He had to stop the arm. Think. If I punch that hand, I'll break my arm. If I break my arm, I can't carry her. He saw the robot's structure. It was massive, but it was mechanical. It had joints. It had hydraulics of its own. Cover your head, Izuku commanded. He crouched low. The green lightning intensified, scorching the pavement. One for all, full cowl. He launched himself. But he didn't jump at the fist. He jumped onto the robot's arm as it descended. He landed on the metallic forearm of the Titan, his shoes gripping the surface. The G-force pressed him down, but he fought it. He began to sprint up the limb of the zero-pointer. He was a blur of green light running up the titanic arm. The robot, confused by the sensor reading, stalled for a second. Izuku reached the elbow joint, a massive mesmerizing assembly of gears and pistons the size of a car. That's the weak point. He didn't have 100% of All Might's power. He couldn't blow the robot away with air pressure. But he had precision. 5%. Izuku gritted his teeth, the veins in his face bulging. He channeled every ounce of power he could safely hold into his right leg. Detroit. He spun in the air, his leg acting as a steel whip. Axe. He slammed his heel into the central hydraulic piston of the elbow joint. Crunch. Metal shrieked. The piston buckled. The high-pressure oil line within the robot burst, spraying black fluid into the air. The structural integrity of the arm failed instantly. The massive limb went limp, swinging uselessly and crashing into the building next to Uraraka, missing her by meters. The robot's balance was thrown off. It listed to the side, its internal alarms blaring. Izuku was falling now. He was 50 feet in the air. I need to land? I need to land? He saw the ground rushing up. In his panic, he remembered Gran Torino's old movies All Might had mentioned, or maybe just pure instinct. He spotted the vertical wall of a building. He twisted his body. He kicked off the wall, using the impact to kill his momentum, then rebounded to a lamppost, swinging around it like a gymnast, and finally dropped to the ground in a crouch. His legs screamed. His muscles felt like they were on fire. He stumbled, falling to his hands and knees. The zero-pointer groaned, freezing in place as its safety protocols initiated a shutdown due to the catastrophic damage to its primary limb. Silence descended on the battle center. Izuku gasped for air, his vision blurry. He looked toward Uraraka. She was staring at him, mouth agape. He looked at his arms. They were shaking violently. His tracksuit was torn. His skin was bruised deep purple in places where the power had strained the capillaries, but his bones were straight. 1 minute left. President Mick's voice echoed. Izuku tried to stand, but his legs gave out. He collapsed onto his back, staring at the false blue sky. I didn't break, he wheezed, a hysterical laugh bubbling up in his chest. I didn't break. The aftermath. The area was swarming with recovery girls' bots and the elderly heroine herself. She moved through the crowd of students, handing out gummies. She reached Izuku, who was sitting against the wall, nursing a bottle of water. Oh dear, she said, looking him over. You took quite a tumble. I'm okay, Izuku said quickly. Just exhausted. Muscle cramps. Recovery girl peered at him over her visor. She grabbed his arm, her eyes scanning. Bruising. Micro tears in the muscle fibers. Exhaustion. But no fractures? No shattered bones? No, ma'am. Humph. She smiled, patting his hand. Usually, quirks with that kind of output come with a heavy price for the user. You have good control, Sonny. Here, have some gummies. You'll need the sugar. She kissed his forehead. The fatigue deepened, but the pain faded. As the students began to file out, talking excitedly about their scores, Izuku packed his bag. He felt a gaze on him. He turned to see Tenya Ida standing a few feet away. The tall boy looked at the destroyed zero-pointer, then back at Izuku. You, Ida said, his voice lacking its usual volume. You realized the true nature of the test, didn't you? Huh! The rescue points, Ida said, clenching his fist. I was so focused on the objective, on the standing, visible score, that I ignored the classmate in danger. You didn't hesitate. You risked your score, your safety, everything, to save her. Ida bowed deeply, a perfect 90-degree angle. I misjudged you. You are a superior candidate. No, Izuku waved his hands frantically. I just moved. My body just moved. Exactly, Ida straightened up. That is what makes a hero. Ida marched off, leaving Izuku stunned. Izuku walked toward the exit tunnel. As he passed into the shadow of the gate, a skinny figure stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. All Might! Izuku whispered. All Might looked terrible. He was vibrating with suppressed emotion. He walked up to Izuku and placed a heavy hand on the boy's shoulder. You! All Might started, his voice thick. I didn't get any points in the last 10 minutes, Izuku confessed, looking down. I wasted time on the big one. I probably failed. All Might laughed. It was a wet, choked sound. Failed? All Might squeezed his shoulder. Young Midoriya, you dismantled the Titan without breaking your sword. You saved a life without sacrificing your own. You didn't just pass. All Might looked at the boy, the unbroken vessel. You have begun your origin story. And for the first time, I am not terrified for your future. I am excited. Izuku felt the tears welling up. The big, fat crocodile tears that were his trademark. But he didn't sob. He wiped his eyes, clenched his unbroken fist, and smiled. I'm just getting started. The alarm clock on the bedside table buzzed at 5:30 a.m., a harsh, mechanical sound that usually signaled the start of a grueling day. For 10 months, this sound had meant dragging a tired body to Dagoba Beach to haul trash until his muscles screamed. Today, however, Izuku Midoriya slapped the snooze button with a hand that didn't tremble. He lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling of his all-night-themed room. The posters of the symbol of peace smiled down at him, frozen in their eternal vigilance. For years, those smiles had been a comfort, a promise that everything would be okay. Now they felt different. They felt like an expectation. You are the vessel, the posters seemed to say. Don't crack. Izuku sat up, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. He clenched his right hand. Immediately, a phantom warmth pulled in his stomach, the stockpile of One for All. It was dormant now, a sleeping dragon curled around his spine, but he could feel its weight. It was heavy, terrifying, and undeniably his. He moved through his morning routine with mechanical precision. Shower. Breakfast, grilled fish and rice, devoured quickly. Then, the moment of truth. The uniform. The gray blazer with dark green stripes hung on his door like a suit of armor. Putting it on felt ceremonial. As he buttoned the jacket, checking himself in the mirror, he didn't see the quirkless Deku who cowered from explosions. He saw a UA student. He saw someone who had taken down a zero-pointer without breaking a single bone. Izuku! You're going to be late. Inko Midoriya's voice drifted from the kitchen, laced with her usual high-octane anxiety. I'm going, Mom! He grabbed his yellow backpack. At the door, his mother fussed over his collar, her eyes watering. She had been crying on and off since the acceptance letter arrived. My baby, she sniffled, reaching out to straighten his tie for the third time. You look so cool. Are you sure you have your tissues? Your handkerchief? I have everything, Izuku smiled gently. He took her hands. Mom. I'll be fine. I'm not going to get hurt. Inko froze. She looked at him, really looked at him. Usually, Izuku's reassurances were frantic stammering. This time, his voice was level. His eyes were clear. Okay, she whispered, drying her eyes. Go be a hero. UA High School Class 1A. The hallways of UA were cavernous. The doors were massive, built to accommodate students with gigantification quirks or mutation types. Izuku navigated the corridors, checking the map on his phone. 1A. 1A. Huge door. Hard to miss. He found it. The door was towering, easily 4 meters tall. He stood before it, his heart doing a nervous flutter against his ribs. This was it. The elite. The best of the best. I hope the people inside are nice, he thought, recalling the terrifying spectacle of the exam. I hope I'm not with scary people. He slid the door open. Remove your foot from the desk. Huh! It is disrespectful to the UA upperclassmen and the people who made this desk. Joke's on you, Four Eyes. I don't respect anything. Izuku froze. The two voices were unmistakable. Tenya Ida, the engine-legged rule follower from the exam, was chopping his hand robotically at Katsuki Bakugo, who was lounging with his feet up, radiating pure malice. Of course, Izuku thought, a drop of sweat rolling down his temple. It had to be them. Bakugo's eyes snapped toward the door. The moment he saw Izuku, the air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The ash blonde lowered his legs slowly, his red eyes narrowing into slits. Deku, Bakugo growled. Usually, this was the part where Izuku flinched, where he stammered an apology for existing. But today, Izuku felt the hum of the quirk beneath his skin, a low-voltage reminder of his capability. Good morning, Kaken, Izuku said. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away. Bakugo blinked. The lack of fear seemed to confuse him more than anger him. He opened his mouth to shout something, likely an interrogation about the entrance exam, but Ida intercepted. Ah. You. Ida marched over, his movements stiff and precise. You are the one with the muttering. Midoriya, correct? Yes. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy, he bowed. I must apologize. During the entrance exam, I misjudged you completely. I thought you were merely disruptive, but you perceived the true nature of the test, the rescue points. I was blind to it. You are the superior student. The entire class turned to look. Izuku waved his hands frantically. No. I didn't realize anything. My body just moved. Hey! It's the curly-haired kid. Izuku turned to see Ochako Uraraka beaming at him from the doorway. You made it. That punch was amazing. And you didn't even break your legs. I was so worried when you fell, but then you did that ninja roll. It wasn't a ninja roll, Izuku blushed, rubbing the back of his neck. Just impact distribution. If you're here to make friends, you can pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. The class went silent. Lying in the doorway, encased in a bright yellow sleeping bag like a monolithic caterpillar, was a man. He looked exhausted. His hair was a mess of black tangles, his eyes bloodshot and dry, and his stubble unkempt. He sucked on a jelly pouch with the enthusiasm of a man on death row. He unzipped the bag and stood up, shedding the cocoon. He wore all black, with a captured weapon scarf wrapped around his neck. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, the man deadpanned, checking a stopwatch. Time is a limited resource. You lot aren't rational enough. Izuku's mind raced. That worn-out look, the scarf, the underground hero, Eraserhead. He hates the media. He's a specialist in ambush tactics and quirk nullification. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, the man said. Put these on and meet me on the grounds. He pulled a blue pea uniform out of his sleeping bag and tossed it to Izuku. The changing rooms. The boys' locker room was filled with the sounds of zippers and rustling fabric. The atmosphere was thick with testosterone and nervous energy. Man, that teacher looks intense, said a boy with spiky red hair, Eijiro Kurishima. Is he really a pro? He must be, said a boy with elbows shaped like tape dispensers, Hanta Siro. Yui doesn't hire amateurs. Izuku stripped off his blazer and shirt. As he did, the chatter near him died down. Compared to the other 15-year-olds, Izuku's body told a story of violence. His muscles were dense and compact, carved from the hellish regimen at Dagoba Beach. But it was the scars that drew the eye. Faint white lines from dragging rusted metal, scrapes from slipping on jagged trash, and the fresh, yellowish bruising on his shoulders and legs from the recoil of one for all during the exam. He didn't look like a student. He looked like a prize fighter in the featherweight division. Bakugo, changing a few lockers down, glared at Izuku's back. He remembered a Deku who was soft, weak, and breakable. This Deku looked hard. When did he get that build? Bakugo thought, his teeth grinding. He was hiding this? For how long? Hey, Midoriya, right? Kirishima asked, impressed. You look like you've been training for years, man. That's manly. Oh, thanks. Izuku pulled the blue tracksuit top on quickly, hiding the evidence. Just a lot of beach cleanup. Beach cleanup? Minoru Mineta, the small boy with grape hair, squeaked. Is that a euphemism for something? Let's hurry, Ida commanded, chopping the air. We must not keep Mr. Aizawa waiting. The P grounds. The sun was high and bright, a stark contrast to Aizawa's mood. The class stood in a cluster on the dirt field. A quirk apprehension test? The class shouted in unison. What about the entrance ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? Uraraka asked, worried. Aizawa turned away, his back to the class. If you're going to become a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events. UA's selling point is its freedom on campus. That applies to the teachers as well. He turned back, his dark eyes boring into them. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. Sit-ups. You did these in middle school, right? Quirkless. The country still insists on prohibiting quirks when calculating the averages of those records. It's not rational. The Ministry of Education is procrastinating. Aizawa pointed a finger at Bakugo. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. In middle school, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Then, try doing it with your quirk. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He grabbed the ball, a feral grin spreading across his face. You can do whatever you want as long as you stay in the circle, Aizawa instructed. Bakugo wound up. He didn't just throw. He added a blast of explosions to the throw, propelling the ball like a missile. Die! Die! Izuku thought. Who shouts die when throwing a ball? The ball soared, leaving a trail of smoke. It landed far in the distance. Aizawa held up his device. 705.2 meters. Whoa! 705 meters? That's insane! Kaminari cheered. This looks like fun! Mina Ashido squealed, jumping up and down. We can use our quirks as much as we want. The atmosphere lightened. The students were excited. They were finally free to show off. Izuku, however, watched Aizawa. The teacher's shoulders tensed. The air grew heavy. Fun, huh? Aizawa whispered. You have 3 years to become a hero. Will you have an attitude like that the whole time? He grinned, a wide, manic expression that didn't reach his eyes. All right. Whoever comes in last place in all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential, and will be punished with expulsion. The silence that followed was absolute. Expulsion? Uraraka cried out. It's the first day. That's too unreasonable. Natural disasters. Big accidents. Selfish villains, Aizawa listed, brushing his hair back. Calamities whose time or place can't be predicted. Japan is covered in unreasonableness. Heroes are the ones who reverse those situations. If you wanted to go talk to your friends at Mickey D's after school, too bad. For the next 3 years, UA will do all it can to give you one hardship after another. Go beyond. Plus ultra, he beckoned with a finger. Overcome it with all you've got. Izuku swallowed hard. The heat in his stomach flared. Last place gets expelled. He looked at his classmates. He saw engines, gravity manipulation, explosions, creation. I can't control 100%. If I use 100%, I break my arm. If I break my arm, I fail the other tests. If I fail the other tests, I'm last. I'm expelled. Hydraulic theory, he chanted internally. Keep the pressure low. Keep the engine running. Don't be a cannon. Be a machine. Test 1, 50-meter dash. The robotic camera set up at the finish line beeped as Ida and Tsuyu Ajiri lined up. Blast off. Ida was a blur of engine exhaust. 3.04 seconds. Ajiri hopped across in 5.58 seconds. Ida is the benchmark for speed, Izuku analyzed, watching from the side. Bakugo uses explosions for propulsion. Uraraka can make herself lighter. Midoriya. Bakugo. Aizawa called their names. Izuku walked to the starting line. Beside him, Bakugo was vibrating with intensity. Don't get in my way, Deku, Bakugo hissed. I don't know what trick you pulled in the exam, but running is pure physics. Right, Izuku murmured. He crouched down. Breathe. Circulate. He closed his eyes for a split second. He felt the power trickle from his core, down his hips, into his quadriceps, his calves, his toes. The green sparks flickered across his tracksuit. Full cal 5%. Start. Bakugo launched immediately, explosions popping behind him to propel him forward. Boom boom boom. Izuku didn't explode. He simply moved. The ground beneath his feet compacted. He wasn't running, he was power skipping. Each stride was enhanced by the raw strength of One for All. He wasn't as fast as Ida's engines, and he lacked the aerial acceleration of Bakugo's blasts, but the raw torque in his legs was superhuman. They crossed the line almost simultaneously. 4.13 seconds. Bakugo, 4.82 seconds. Midoriya. Bakugo skidded to a halt, turning around with a snarl. He expected to see Deku dusting himself off 10 seconds later. Instead, Izuku was standing right behind him, exhaling a puff of steam. 4.82. Izuku looked at his hands. Faster than middle school. Much faster. But Bakugo is still faster in a sprint. Bakugo walked up to him, grabbing his collar. Since when? Since when do you have a speed quirk? It's not speed, Izuku said calmly, removing Bakugo's hand. It's power. I'm just pushing off harder. Aizawa watched from the sidelines, his eyes narrowing. He's using the quirk across his whole body. It's sloppy, The energy is leaking out as light, but the internal containment is solid. He's not breaking. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku held the digital dynamometer. Focus. Don't crush the machine. Just squeeze. He channeled the power into his forearm. The muscles swelled slightly, tearing against the sleeve of his tracksuit. The machine beeped. 285 kilograms. He looked over. Mizo Shoji, the boy with multiple arms, had scored 540 kilograms. Okay, I can't beat the strength specialists either, Izuku noted. But 285 is superhuman. It's consistent. Mineta, next to him, stared at Izuku's score and then at his own trembling hand holding the device. What are you eating? Cement? Test 3, standing long jump. This was where the leg strength from the beach training really shone. Bakugo blasted himself across the sandbox. Aoyama used his naval laser to propel himself. Izuku stood at the line. He channeled 5% again. Jump. He launched. It felt like flying. He cleared the sandbox entirely, landing in the grass on the other side with a roll. Good form, Ojiro, the tail user, nodded appreciatively. Test 4, repeated side steps. Mineta was the king here, bouncing off his great balls. Izuku used full cowl to enhance his agility, moving back and forth in a blur of green lightning. He wasn't the fastest, but he was far above the average. The crisis, ball throw. The sun was beginning to dip, casting long shadows across the field. The class had cycled through most of the tests. Uraraka had just scored infinity, blowing everyone's minds. Midoriya, Aizawa called. This was it. The test that measured raw output. Izuku walked to the circle. He picked up the ball. It felt light. I've been getting consistent scores, Izuku thought. Top 5 in running. Top 5 in grip. Top 5 in jumping. I'm safe from expulsion, probably. But Aizawa is watching me. He glanced at the teacher. Aizawa wasn't looking at the clipboard. He was staring directly at Izuku's right arm. He expects me to break, Izuku realized. He saw the entrance exam footage. He saw the 0-pointer. He thinks that's my only move. Izuku took a deep breath. If I use 5%, I'll get maybe 60 or 70 meters. It's safe. It's rational. But is it plus ultra? The voice of All Might echoed in his head. You are the vessel. I need to show him I can do more. I need to push the valve open just a little more. Maybe 8%? 10%? Just for a second? Izuku winded up. He entered the throwing motion. He visualized the hydraulic system. He grabbed the valve in his mind and wrenched it open, one for all. 10%. The power rushed up his arm. It was violent. It felt like his bones were vibrating. SMA. Suddenly, the power vanished. The oil in his veins disappeared. The engine stalled. Izuku threw the ball with just his natural muscle. It plopped onto the grass. 46 meters. Huh! Izuku blinked. He tried to summon the power again. Nothing. It was gone. I erased your quirk. The voice was cold. Izuku turned. Aizawa stood there, his hair defying gravity, his scarf floating around him like a nest of snakes. His eyes glowed a piercing red. That entrance exam was definitely not rational enough, Aizawa said, walking closer. Even if you have the power to dismantle a giant robot, you are a liability if you can't control it. I saw the reports. You have immense power, but it's volatile. But you've been holding back all day, Aizawa cut him off. Using a fraction of your power. Playing it safe. Why? Are you afraid you'll shatter like glass? Izuku stiffened. I'm not afraid. I'm being careful. Careful isn't enough. Aizawa's scarf lashed out, wrapping around Izuku and pulling him close. The teacher smelled of eye drops and coffee. If you face a villain who outclasses your safe mode, what will you do? Will you unleash 100% and destroy your body, becoming a burden to those around you? A hero who needs saving is no hero at all. Aizawa's eyes bored into him. Whatever you were planning to do just now, that surge, it looked unstable. I'm not going to let you destroy yourself on my watch. If you can't regulate your output to be effective and safe at high levels, you don't belong here. He blinked. His hair fell. The red glow faded. I've returned your quirk. You have 2 tries left. Hurry up and get it over with. Aizawa turned and walked back to the safety zone. He's harsh, Ida whispered. But he has a point, Bakugo muttered, watching intently. Deku's been sandbagging. Izuku stood in the circle, the ball in his hand. His heart hammered. He erased it because he thought I was going to lose control. He thinks I'm a glass cannon. Izuku looked at the ball. He looked at the distance. 46 meters is failing. If I keep that score, I drop in the rankings. I might be expelled. He wants to see power? Fine. But he also wants control. He wants rationality. If I use 100%, I get 700 meters, but I break my arm. Aizawa expels me for being a liability. If I use 5%, I get 70 meters. Aizawa expels me for being weak. I need the middle ground. I need to show him that the vessel is stronger than he thinks. Izuku took a stance. Not a generic throwing stance, but a pitcher's stance. He widened his legs. He focused the power. Not everywhere. Just the kinetic chain, legs, hips, core, shoulder, arm, fingertips. He didn't activate full call across his whole body. He kept the oil in the tank until the very last second. He began the motion, step, twist, throw. As his arm came forward, whipped by the torque of his hips, he opened the valve. One for all, instant flow. He didn't aim for 100%. He aimed for the absolute limit of what his current bone density could handle without snapping. 15%? No, that's risky. 10%. Just the fingertips. Smash! At the precise moment the ball left his hand, he flooded his index and middle finger with power. There was a crack, not of bone, but of air. A shockwave blasted dust up from the circle. The ball screamed into the sky. It didn't have the explosive propulsion of Bakugo's, nor the infinite float of Uraraka's. It was just raw, kinetic violence. It soared. And soared. And soared. Izuku clutched his hand. His fingers were throbbing, turning a bright, angry red. They stung like he'd slammed them in a car door. Microfractures, he diagnosed instantly. Hairline cracks. But not broken. I can still make a fist. The device in Aizawa's hand beeped. 253.0 meters. The class stared. It wasn't 700 meters. But for a physical throw without an explosion or gravity manipulation? It was monstrous. Izuku turned to Aizawa. He held up his hand, clenching it into a fist to show it still worked. His fingers trembled, but they obeyed. I'm still standing, Sensei, Izuku said, his voice steady. And I can keep fighting. Aizawa looked at the score. Then he looked at the boy. For a moment, the tired teacher's face remained impassive. Then, the corners of his mouth twitched upwards into a wide, unsettling grin. He didn't go for the glory of 700 meters, Aizawa thought. He calculated the maximum output his body could sustain without incapacitation. He chose a tactical victory over a pyrrhic one. Rational, Aizawa muttered. Hey! An explosion rocked the field. Bakugo was charging. Deku, you bastard! Tell me how you did that. Since when do you have that kind of power? Bakugo was feral. He had accepted the speed. He had accepted the strength. But that snap? That shockwave? That was power. That was all might level pressure, even if it was small. Izuku didn't flinch. He prepared to dodge. Zip. Aizawa's scarf shot out, wrapping Bakugo like a mummy. Ugh! What the hell is this cloth? It's stiff. It's a capture weapon made of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy, Aizawa drawled. Stand down. Don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye. Dry eye. The class sweat dropped. Aizawa released Bakugo. The blond boy stood there, chest heaving, glaring at Izuku with a mix of hatred and confusion. Izuku met his gaze. I'm not looking down on you, Kaken, Izuku thought. I'm just not looking up at you anymore. We're on the same ground. The results. The sun had set. The floodlights illuminated the field. Okay, I'll quickly present the results, Aizawa said. The total is simply the marks you got from each test. It's a waste of time to explain verbally, so I'll show you. He pressed a button on a holographic projector. The list appeared. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu, created tools for every test. Pure efficiency. 2. Shoto Todoroki, physical beast enhanced by ice/fire regulation. 3. Katsuki Bakugo, top-tier athlete. 4. Izuku Midoriya, consistently high stats across the board. 5. Tenya Ida, fast, but lacked upper body strength in some tests. 20. Minoru Mineta. Izuku stared at his name. Number 4. He wasn't first. He wasn't the best. But he was there. High up. By the way, Aizawa said, tossing his phone in his pocket. I was lying about the expulsion. Huh! The class screamed. It was a logical ruse to draw out the upper limits of your quirks. What? Of course it was a lie, Yaoyorozu sighed, hand on her chest. It was obvious if you thought about it. No, it wasn't. The rest of the class thought. Aizawa turned to leave. He paused near Izuku. Midoriya. Izuku straightened. Yes, sir? Go to the nurse's office and get some ice for your fingers. They're swollen. Aizawa didn't look at him. Tomorrow, the real curriculum starts. Don't get comfortable. Yes, sir. Aizawa walked away. As he turned the corner of the building, All Might stepped out from the shadows. Aizawa, you liar, All Might whispered. Aizawa glanced at the skeletal hero. All Might. So you were watching. You expelled an entire class of first years last year, All Might accused. You have zero tolerance for those with zero potential. You really would have sent him home if he placed last, wouldn't you? But he didn't place last, Aizawa shrugged. He looked back at the field where the students were walking back to the lockers. That kid. Midoriya. He's reckless, yes. But he thinks. He didn't try to be you today. He tried to be himself. Aizawa smirked. That zero potential label? I was wrong. He has potential. Maybe even more than the loud blonde one. The gate. Izuku walked out of the school gates, his fingers wrapped in a cold compress. He was exhausted. Every muscle fiber ached. But it was a good ache. Deku! He turned. Uraraka was running toward him, Ida walking briskly beside her. Hey! You were amazing out there! Uraraka cheered. 4th place. That's so cool. Indeed, Ida nodded. Your control during the ball throw was exemplary. You prioritized mission longevity over raw force. A wise decision. Thanks, guys, Izuku smiled. It was a real smile, unburdened by secrets or shame. So, Uraraka tilted her head. I was wondering, what does Deku mean? Bakugo uses it like an insult, but... Oh, Izuku rubbed his neck. Yeah. It means useless or wooden doll. Kaken has called me that since we were kids. Really? Uraraka frowned. But I like it. It sounds like Dikairu. Like you can do it. Izuku froze. Deku means you can do it? I like it too, she beamed. It has a nice ring. I'm Deku. Izuku blurted out instantly. Midoriya, you accepted that very quickly. Ida exclaimed. Is that not an insult? It's like a Copernican revolution, Izuku stammered, his face red. As they walked toward the station, chatting about the day, Izuku looked at his hand again. The green lightning was gone, but the feeling remained. He had survived day 1. He hadn't broken his bones. He hadn't been expelled. And he had friends. He looked up at the moon. All Might. I'm doing it. I'm becoming the vessel. And I'm not going to break. The locker room smelled of new rubber and anticipation. It was a scent that Izuku Midoriya was beginning to associate with the shift in his reality. He held the metal briefcase with the number 18 stenciled on the side. Inside lay his hero costume. He traced the latches with his thumb, a small, reverent smile touching his lips. He knew what was inside because he had designed it, but more importantly, he knew who had made it. His mother. In the original timeline, the one that didn't exist, the one where he broke his bones like toothpicks, Izuku might have put on this suit with a sense of desperate hope, a prayer that the fabric would hold him together when his body failed. But today, as he clicked the latches open, he felt something else. He felt worthy. He pulled on the green full-body jumpsuit. It was durable, made of a thick, reinforced weave. He strapped on the red belt, the knee pads, and finally the gloves. He pulled the respirator mask around his neck. He caught his reflection in the mirror. The suit was simple. A bit clunky, perhaps. But the boy wearing it stood straight. His shoulders were broad from hauling trash. His legs were tree trunks of muscle, and in his eyes there was a spark of green electricity that hadn't been there a year ago. Midoriya! That looks great on you, man! Eijiro Kirishima shouted from across the room, flexing in his gear which consisted mostly of nothing. It's very practical, thanks, Kirishima, Izuku replied, adjusting his gloves. Yours is very manly. Right. Across the room, Katsuki Bakugo slammed his locker shut. The sound was like a gunshot. He wore a black tank top with a metallic X across the chest, and massive, grenade-shaped gauntlets on his forearms. He didn't look at anyone. He stared at the wall, radiating a silent, boiling heat. Izuku watched him for a second. Kaken is quiet. That's worse than him yelling. Let's go, Bakugo growled, marching out. Izuku took a deep breath. He clenched his fist, feeling the familiar hum of One for All. The hydraulic fluid in his veins. Respond instantly. No braking, he reminded himself. Just flow. Ground Beta monitoring room entrance. I am here. All Might's voice boomed through the tunnel, causing several students to jump. The symbol of peace stood at the entrance to the mock city, his cape fluttering in a wind that he seemed to generate himself. Coming through the door like a hero, the class cheered. Seeing All Might in the flesh, wearing his Silver Age costume, was a morale boost like no other. But Izuku noticed something the others didn't. All Might's smile was fixed, but his eyes darted to Izuku immediately, scanning him. Checking for injuries. Checking for the glass cannon. Izuku gave a small, confident nod. All Might's shoulders visibly relaxed. Welcome to combat training, All Might announced, pulling out a script. You've done the physical tests. But being a hero isn't just about raw stats. It's about application. Today, we move to the next level. He gestured to the brutalist concrete buildings behind him. Indoor anti-personnel battle training. Villain cleanup is usually seen outdoors, but statistically, the most heinous crimes happen indoors. Backroom deals, imprisonment, house raids. In this society, the smartest villains lurk in the shadows. He explained the rules. 2 teams. Heroes versus villains. A nuclear weapon, papier-mâché, located somewhere in the building. The heroes had to touch the bomb or capture the villains. The villains had to protect the bomb or capture the heroes. Now, let's draw lots. Izuku watched the box rattle. His heart rate picked up. Who I get paired with matters. My quirk is versatile now, but I need someone who can capitalize on mobility. Team A! All Might shouted. Izuku Midoriya and Ochako Uraraka. Oh! We're together! Uraraka cheered, clapping her hands. She looked like a futuristic astronaut in her pink and black suit. I'm counting on you, Deku. Same here, Uraraka-san, Izuku smiled. And your opponents will be. All Might reached into the villain box. He paused. A bead of sweat rolled down his chiseled jaw. Team D! Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida. The air in the tunnel vanished. Izuku felt a chill run down his spine. He turned slowly. Bakugo was already looking at him. The ash blonde wasn't yelling. He wasn't making explosions in his palms. He was smiling, a predatory, jagged grin that promised pain. It's fate, Deku, Bakugo whispered, his voice carrying over the silence. Ida adjusted his helmet, looking serious. A confrontation between the top scorers of the entrance exam and the appraisal test. This will be a worthy challenge. All Might look between the two boys. He knew the history. He knew the bullying. He considered, for a brief second, reshuffling the teams. But he saw Izuku's face. Izuku wasn't cowering. He wasn't shaking. He was staring back at Bakugo with a furrowed brow, his lips moving in a silent mutter of strategy. He's not scared, All Might realized. He's planning. All right. All Might shouted, forcing enthusiasm. Team A is heroes. Team D is villains. Everyone else, to the monitoring room. Villain team, you have 5 minutes to set up. Hero team, wait at the entrance. 5 minutes later outside the building. The building was a 5-story concrete skeleton. Inside, the bomb was ticking, metaphorically. Izuku stood by the entrance map, tapping his chin. Uraraka watched him nervously. Deku-kun? She asked. You look intense. I'm thinking about Kaken, Izuku said. He pointed to the blueprints. Ida is diligent. He'll take the role of the villain seriously. He'll likely stay with the weapon to guard it, fortifying the room. He'll probably remove all objects from the room to prevent you from using your zero-gravity on debris. That sounds like him, Uraraka nodded. But Kaken? Izuku's eyes darkened. He won't care about the bomb. He won't care about the timer. He's coming for me. He wants to prove that I'm still a pebble in his path. He's going to abandon the objective to hunt me down. That's bad for them, right? Uraraka asked. If he leaves the bomb unguarded? It's bad for them strategically, Izuku agreed. But tactically it's dangerous for us. Kaken is a combat genius. If he catches us in a narrow corridor, his explosions are lethal. Izuku turned to Uraraka. Uraraka-san. Here is the plan. We go in together. When Kaken attacks, and he will attack, I will engage him. You'll fight him alone? Uraraka gasped. But his explosions. I can handle him, Izuku said. It wasn't arrogance. It was a statement of fact derived from the last 48 hours. I'll draw his attention. While I keep him busy, you use your float to get to the bomb room. Ida will be alone. If you can make him float, we win. But Deku, are you sure? Izuku pulled his mask up over his nose. The metal plate clicked into place. His eyes, framed by the green cowl, burned with a steady light. I've spent my whole life watching him, Izuku said. I know his moves better than he knows them himself. And for the first time, I have the hardware to match the software. Start! All Might's voice blared over the speakers. Izuku kicked the door open. Full cowl 5%. The green lightning crackled to life, a low hum that vibrated in his teeth. He didn't sprint blindly. He moved with a prowling grace, his senses dialed to 11. Inside the building's second floor, the corridors were dimly lit and narrow. The perfect kill zone for an explosion quirk. Izuku led the way, stepping lightly. Uraraka floated behind him to mask her footsteps. Come on, Kaken, Izuku thought. Where are you? Around this corner? The next one? His danger sense, not a quirk, but a trauma response honed by years of bullying, tingled. Duck! Izuku hissed. He grabbed Uraraka's arm and yanked her back. Boom! The wall ahead of them disintegrated. A massive fireball erupted from a blind corner, scorching the air where they had been standing a millisecond ago. Smoke billowed, thick and acrid. From the smoke, a shadow emerged. You dodged? Bakugo's voice was low, incredulous. You usually just freeze, Deku. Bakugo stepped out. He looked demonic in the half-light, the grenade gauntlets glinting. He raised his right hand, smoke curling from his palm. I won't hurt you so bad that they stop the fight, Bakugo grinned. Just close enough. He lunged. It was a classic Bakugo opener. A right hook, propelled by a small explosion to increase velocity. It was fast. To a normal person, it was a blur. But Izuku wasn't normal anymore. And he wasn't stagnant. Right hook. Large swing. He leads with his shoulder. In the old days, Izuku would have flinched. He would have covered his face and prayed. Today, Izuku stepped in. He channeled 5% into his legs. He dropped his center of gravity. He watched the explosion ignite in Bakugo's palm, the flash of light preceding the force. Izuku ducked under the swing. The heat of the explosion licked his cowl, singeing the fabric, but the force passed harmlessly over his head. Bakugo's eyes widened. He went under? Izuku was now inside Bakugo's guard. He didn't punch. Punching Bakugo would just turn this into a brawl. Izuku grabbed Bakugo's outstretched right arm with his left hand, and seized the fabric of Bakugo's tank top with his right. Capture tape? No time. Judo. You always lead with a big right, Izuku muttered. He pivoted his hips. He channeled the power, not into a strike, but into the lift. The hydraulic press of one for all engaged. With a grunt, Izuku used Bakugo's own forward momentum against him. He hoisted the explosive boy over his shoulder. Get off! Bakugo started. Slam! Izuku drove him into the concrete floor. It wasn't a gentle spar. The floor cracked under Bakugo's back. The breath left the blonde's lungs in a wheeze. Izuku didn't linger. He released the grip and backflipped away, putting 5 meters of distance between them. Silence. In the monitoring room, the class gasped. He threw him? Kaminari whispered. He threw Bakugo? That wasn't a quirk move, Ojiro noted, his tail twitching. That was pure martial arts. A shoulder throw. But the speed, he closed the gap instantly. Back in the corridor, Bakugo lay on the ground for a second, staring at the ceiling. His brain refused to process the data. Deku touched me. Deku threw me. I am on the floor. He is standing. Uraraka, go! Izuku shouted, not taking his eyes off the fallen boy. Right. Uraraka snapped out of her daze and sprinted past Bakugo toward the stairs. Bakugo scrambled up, his face twisting into a mask of pure rage. He turned to blast Uraraka. Don't ignore me! Zip! Izuku was there. He appeared in Bakugo's peripheral vision, a streak of green lightning. He delivered a sharp, controlled kick to Bakugo's gauntlet, knocking his aim wide. The explosion hit the wall. Your opponent is me, Kaken, Izuku said, settling into a fighting stance, knees bent, arms loose, fingers twitching. Bakugo turned slowly. His hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from a fury so intense it felt like his blood was boiling. You! Bakugo's voice cracked. You've been laughing at me this whole time, haven't you? With that quirk? With those moves? I'm not laughing, Izuku said calmly. I'm focusing. You're a strong opponent. If I look away, I lose. Shut up, Bakugo launched himself. This time, there was no strategy. It was a barrage. Boom. 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 He flew through the air, using explosions to change direction, spinning like a top. He unleashed a flurry of blasts aimed at Izuku's head, chest, and legs. Izuku retreated. He used the walls, the ceiling. He jumped from the floor to the wall, pushed off, and slid under a kick. He's fast, Izuku analyzed, sweat pouring down his face inside the mask. His reaction time is incredible. Even with 5%, I can barely keep up with his raw aggression. A blast clipped Izuku's shoulder. He grunted, stumbling. Bakugo capitalized. He landed a solid knee to Izuku's gut. Izuku coughed, the air leaving him. He rolled backward to absorb the impact, skidding to a halt. You think you can just dodge forever? Bakugo screamed. Stop running and fight me, you coward! Izuku stood up. He wiped the dust from his suit. He touched his stomach. It hurt, but nothing was broken. The hydraulic fluid, the full cowl, was acting like armor, reinforcing his abs against the blow. I'm not running, Izuku said. I'm analyzing. Analyzing what? How to die. Analyzing you, Izuku said. You're angry. You're swinging wide. You're wasting sweat. Bakugo froze. Wasting sweat? He looked at his gauntlets. He had been blasting non-stop. The storage tanks were filling up. You know how my quirk works, Bakugo said, a dark realization crossing his face. He held up his right arm. He reached for the pin on the gauntlet. Kaken, don't! Izuku's eyes widened. In an enclosed space like this, you'll bring the building down. If you don't dodge, you'll die. Bakugo smiled crazily. So don't dodge, Deku. In the monitoring room, All Might grabbed the microphone. Young Bakugo, stop. Are you trying to kill him? If you use that, I'll end the match. He won't die if he dodges. Bakugo roared back at the camera. He pulled the pin. Click. Time seemed to suspend. Izuku saw the ignition spark in the gauntlet mechanism. He knew the physics of nitroglycerin. He knew the volume of that storage tank. It was a wall of fire. I can't dodge this sideways, Izuku realized. The corridor is too narrow. The blast wave will catch me. Block it? Number 5% isn't enough to block a nuke. Redirect it? Maybe. Hydraulic theory, emergency venting. Izuku didn't run away. He dropped into a deep lunge. He pulled his right arm back. He felt the pull of one for all. He grabbed the valve and ripped it open past the safety limit. 10%. 15%. Pain spiked in his arm. The vessel strained. Detroit. The blast wave erupted from Bakugo's gauntlet, a roaring tunnel of fire and force. Izuku punched. Not at Bakugo, but at the air pressure itself. Smash! He released a shockwave of wind pressure. It wasn't the weather-changing force of All Might, but it was a solid cannonball of air. The two forces collided in the middle of the hallway. The explosion met the wind pressure. Boom! The result was chaotic. The forces pushed against each other, then expanded outward, blowing out the walls and windows of the second floor. The building shook to its foundation. Dust and smoke swallowed everything. The monitoring room. The signal is fuzzy, Ashido cried. Did they survive that? That was insane. Kirishima gripped the table. Bakugo is crazy. But Midoriya, he countered it. The smoke began to clear on the screen. The hallway was a wreck. Rebar was exposed. Concrete was pulverized. Bakugo stood panting, his arms smoking, looking shocked. He had expected to see a charred body. Instead, the smoke swirled. Izuku was standing. His costume was tattered. His right sleeve was gone. His arm was a mess of purple bruises, trembling violently. Blood trickled down his fingers, but the arm was still shaped like an arm. He didn't break it. All Might whispered, leaning close to the screen. He went over his limit to cancel out the blast wave, but he stopped before total structural failure. Izuku hissed in pain, clutching his right arm with his left hand. It felt like he had slammed it in a car door 10 times in a row. It was sprained, maybe hairline fractured, but it wasn't the shattered mess of the entrance exam timeline. Is that all you've got? Izuku wheezed, forcing a grin he didn't feel. Bakugo stepped back. For the first time in his life, he felt a flicker of genuine fear. Not of being hurt, but of being surpassed. You! Bakugo shook. You stopped the gauntlet. I told you. Izuku straightened up, green lightning flickering back to life around his legs. I'm not a pebble anymore. I'm the one who's going to win. Win? Bakugo snapped. You're barely standing. Winning isn't about standing, Izuku said. He tapped his earpiece. Uraraka-san, now! Got it! Uraraka's voice crackled in his ear. Above them, on the 5th floor, while Bakugo had been fixated on his duel, Uraraka had reached the weapon room. Ida had cleared the room, just as Izuku predicted. Where are you, hero? Ida laughed, embracing his villain persona. I have secured the weapon. Ida was watching the door. But Uraraka didn't come through the door. She was floating outside the window. Sorry, Ida-kun. She released her quirk, grabbing a pillar she had touched earlier. The pillar Izuku had kicked during the fight? No. Suddenly, the floor beneath Ida shook. Down on the 2nd floor, Izuku looked at the ceiling directly above him. This is a team battle, Kaken, Izuku said. He channeled power into his good left leg. He looked at the exposed rebar in the ceiling, weakened by the blast. Smash! He kicked upward. A blade of air pressure shot up, punching through the weakened concrete of the 3rd floor, then the 4th. The vibration traveled. In the weapon room, Ida stumbled as the floor rumbled. What? Uraraka used the distraction. She swung in through the window, grabbed the pillar debris, and batted a barrage of small rocks at Ida. Meteor shower! Nua! Ida blocked the rocks. Your attacks are futile. I'm not attacking you! Uraraka yelled. She leaped over his head. While Ida was busy blocking the rocks, he had left the weapon exposed. She hugged the papier-mâché bomb. Captured. The buzzer sounded. Hero team wins! All Might shouted. The aftermath. The silence in the ruined hallway was heavy. Bakugo stood frozen. He hadn't lost the fight. Izuku was the one battered and bruised. But the announcement rang in his ears. Hero team wins. I lost? Bakugo whispered. Izuku slumped against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor. He cradled his bruised right arm. The adrenaline was fading, and the pain was setting in. We won, Izuku breathed out. He looked up at Bakugo. The blonde boy wasn't looking at him. He was staring at his hands, his body trembling with a mixture of rage and confusion. Kaken, Izuku said softly. Shut up, Bakugo said. His voice was devoid of its usual fire. It was hollow. Don't talk to me. He turned and walked away toward the exit, his footsteps heavy. The review session? The class gathered back in the monitoring room. The atmosphere was different. They looked at Izuku not as the nervous kid, but as the guy who just went toe-to-toe with the scary explosion guy. Ideally, I would say young Ida was the best in this match. All Might began, trying to stick to the script. I disagree, All Might. Momo Yayorozu raised her hand. Oh? Explain, young Yayorozu. The MVP was clearly Midoriya, Momo stated. She pointed a pointer at the screen replay. While Ida prepared well, he was outmaneuvered. Bakugo acted entirely on emotion, abandoning the objective and causing massive property damage. That attack with the gauntlet was reckless and would have been fatal in a real scenario. She turned to Izuku, who was having his arms sprayed with cooling spray by a robot. Midoriya, however, displayed exceptional situational awareness. He accurately predicted his opponent's behavior. He engaged Bakugo not to defeat him, but to stall him. His use of martial arts combined with his quirk showed high technical skill. And crucially, she paused, looking at his bruised but intact arm. He regulated his power. He took a calculated risk to neutralize the blast, accepting minor injury to prevent a catastrophe. He minimized damage to himself while maximizing the team's chance of victory. It was a rational, professional performance. Izuku blushed bright red. She is correct. All Might gave a thumbs up, beaming. Rational indeed. That is the essence of being a hero. Saving the day while managing the risk. The class murmured in agreement. He's super strong, Tsuyu croaked. And smart, Jiro added. In the corner, Bakugo leaned against the wall, listening. Every word was a dagger. Rational. Professional. Strong. He had always been the best. He was the protagonist. Deku was the extra. The NPC? When did the NPC get a level up? The Sunset School gate. The day was over. Izuku's arm was wrapped in a compression bandage, but Recovery Girl had healed the worst of the bruising with a quick kiss. It was stiff, but functional. He walked out of the school, feeling the cool evening air. Deku! He flinched. He knew that voice. Bakugo stood at the intersection, hands in his pockets, hunched over. He looked like a storm cloud given human form. Kaken, Izuku stopped. Bakugo turned. His eyes were red-rimmed. He had been crying, Izuku realized with a jolt. You think you're better than me now? Bakugo asked, his voice raw. You think because you got some fancy quirk and learned a few throws, you can look down on me? I never looked down on you, Izuku said, stepping forward. I looked up to you. That's why I wanted to beat you. Because you're the symbol of victory to me. Victory? Bakugo scoffed. I lost. I lost to you? I lost to the ice guy in the recommendation exams. I'm not winning. He gripped his chest, clawing at his uniform. But don't think this is over, Deku. Whatever trick you pulled, whatever secret you're hiding. I don't care. I'm going to crush you. I'm going to become the #1 hero, and I'm going to leave you in the dust where you belong. Tears streamed down Bakugo's face, angry and hot. So just watch me. He spun around and stomped away, wiping his eyes furiously. Izuku watched him go. In the original timeline, this conversation had been about Izuku confessing his quirk's origin. But here, Izuku stayed silent on that. He didn't need to explain his power to validate it. He just needed to own it. I'll be watching, Kaken, Izuku whispered to the empty street. But I'll be running right next to you. He clenched his fist. The green lightning sparked for a second, illuminating the dusk. I survived the reality check, Izuku thought. I'm still here. He turned and began the walk home. Tomorrow was the USJ. The real villains were coming. And for the first time, Izuku Midoriya felt ready to meet them not as a victim, but as a contender. The bus engine hummed a low, steady baritone that vibrated through the floorboards, a stark contrast to the high-frequency energy buzzing among the students of Class 1A. They were en route to the unforeseen simulation joint, the USJ, a facility legendary among hero nerds for its disaster rescue scenarios. Izuku Midoriya sat near the back, his notebook open on his lap. He wasn't writing, he was reviewing. His sketches of the hydraulic theory were becoming more complex, overlaid with notes on calorie consumption, friction coefficients, and stress testing. My body is adapting, he thought, flexing his hand. The soreness from the battle trial against Bakugo had faded into a dull ache, easily ignored. 5% is becoming natural. It's no longer a conscious effort to open the valve, it's becoming a reflex. But the output, it's still low. Against a robot or a human, it's enough. But against a disaster? Against falling buildings or raging floods? Midoriya-chan, a croaking voice pulled him from his thoughts. Tsuyu Ajui, sitting next to him, was staring with her large, inquisitive eyes. Oh, Ajui-san! Is something wrong? Call me Tsuyu, she corrected bluntly. I've been thinking. Your quirk is a lot like All Might's. The bus went silent. Or at least, it felt like it to Izuku. His heart hammered a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Huh? All Might? Izuku stammered, waving his hands. You think so? I mean, sure, it's a strength enhancer, but wait a sec, Tsuyu. Eijiro Kirishima leaned over from the seat across the aisle. All Might doesn't get hurt when he uses his power. Midoriya gets all sparkly and sometimes bruises himself. Plus, All Might creates tornadoes. Midoriya is more like a lightning brawler. Izuku exhaled, a breath he didn't know he was holding. Safe. The visual differences are my camouflage. I guess so, Tsuyu tapped her chin. But that green lightning is cool. It makes you look flashy. My quirk is just doing whatever a frog can do. It's popular, but not flashy. Flashy isn't everything, Izuku said, his voice regaining its steadiness. Reliability is what matters. If you can save people consistently, that's the coolest thing a hero can do. You know about reliability, Kirishima grinned, showing his shark teeth. Considering you took down Bakugo without blowing up the building. That was manly. From the front of the bus, Bakugo sat hunched in his seat, staring out the window. He hadn't said a word since they left UA. He was radiating a sullen, quiet intensity that was far more unsettling than his usual screaming. We're here. Quiet down, Aizawa's voice drifted from the front seat. He sounded tired, as always, but there was a sharp edge to his tone today. The bus hissed to a halt. The unforeseen simulation joint. The building was a dome of immense proportions, looking less like a training facility and more like a stadium built for giants. Standing at the entrance was the space hero, 13. Izuku's inner fanboy flared. 13. The master of rescue. Her quirk, Black Hole, is terrifyingly powerful, but she uses it so gently. Welcome, everyone. 13's voice was distorted slightly by her helmet. I have been waiting for you. Inside, the USJ was a marvel of engineering. Zones dedicated to every catastrophe imaginable, fire, flood, landslides, windstorms, were arranged around a central plaza. It's huge! Ochako Uraraka gasped, clutching her helmet. 13 gathered the class near the top of the long staircase overlooking the facility. Before we begin, just 1 point. Or 2 points. Or 3. As 13 launched into a passionate speech about the dangers of quirks, how they can easily kill if misused, Izuku listened intently. This was the core of his new philosophy. Power without control is just a bomb. I am not a bomb. That is why you are here, 13 concluded. To learn how to use your quirks to save, not just to fight. Great speech, Aizawa muttered, stepping forward. Now let's get started. All Might was supposed to meet us here, but, bzzzt, the lights in the massive dome flickered. The fountain in the central plaza sputtered and died. A strange, electric sound tore through the air, like fabric ripping. Izuku felt the hair on his arms stand up. The danger sense he had developed from years of navigating Bakugo's moods spiked into the red. He looked down at the central plaza. A tiny purple dot appeared in the air. It expanded, swirling into a massive vortex of black mist. Gather together and don't move, Aizawa shouted. His voice lost all traces of lethargy. 13. Protect the students. What's that? Kirishima squinted, pointing. Is this like the entrance exam? Has the scenario started already? From the black void, a hand reached out. Pale, thin, and covered in what looked like a severed hand clamping the face. A man with shaggy blue hair stepped through. Behind him, dozens of others followed, grotesque, armed, and radiating malice. And then, a monster. A towering beast with black skin, an exposed brain, and a beak filled with razor-sharp teeth. Don't move! Aizawa donned his goggles, his scarf floating up. Those are villains. The word hung in the air, heavy and cold. Villains? Izuku's mind raced. Here? In a secure UA facility? How? The sensors didn't trip. That warp gate, it must be a quirk. They bypassed security. He watched the horde pour out. There were too many of them. 13 and Eraserhead, huh? The man with the hands on his face spoke, his voice scratching across the distance. The teacher's schedule we received said All Might would be here. The trespassing the other day was the press, but this... Aizawa gritted his teeth. You scumbags, where is he? The handyman scratched his neck violently. I went through so much trouble to bring this crowd. All Might, the symbol of peace. I want to cast him into oblivion. Izuku shivered. Oblivion. They're here to kill All Might. 13. Start the evacuation. Aizawa commanded. Try to contact the school. Kaminari, try to use your quirk to signal for help. But sensei. Izuku stepped forward, panic warring with logic. You can't fight them all alone. Your erasing quirk captures the vision, but against a group of this size. Once your eyes dry out, you're vulnerable. Your style is suited for capture and stealth, not frontal assault against an army. Aizawa paused. He looked back at Izuku. His eyes were hard, but there was a flicker of recognition. The kid was analyzing. He wasn't freezing. You can't be a hero with only one trick, Aizawa said dryly. I'm leaving it to you, 13. With that, Aizawa leaped. He dove down the massive staircase, his capture weapon unfurling like wings. He landed in the mob of villains, a whirlwind of martial arts and erasure. He's incredible. Izuku whispered. He's taking out the shooters first. He's using their confusion against them. He's rational. We have to go. Ida grabbed Izuku's shoulder. Midoriya! This is no time for analysis. The class turned to run toward the exit. But the exit was gone. A wall of purple mist rose before them. Yellow eyes narrowed from within the smoke. Nice to meet you, the mist spoke, polite and terrifying. We are the League of Villains. It may be presumptuous of us, but we have invited ourselves into the home of heroes, UA High School, in order to have All Might, the symbol of peace, take his last breath. Not on my watch. Kirishima and Bakugo lunged simultaneously. Bet you didn't see this coming. Bakugo shouted, unleashing a massive explosion directly into the mist's body. Smoke billowed. But when it cleared, the mist remained unharmed. That was dangerous, the mist said. That is true. Even if you are students, you are excellent golden eggs. Move back! Both of you! 13 shouted, aiming her finger. Too late, the mist swirled. Begone. The world twisted. Darkness enveloped them. Wind rushed past Izuku's ears, warping. He's scattering us. Izuku felt gravity vanish, then return with a vengeance. Splash. Cold water engulfed him. He thrashed, his lungs burning, before kicking upward. He broke the surface, gasping. He was in the flood zone. The artificial ocean stretched out around him, a massive shipwreck looming in the center. Midoriya-chan. Something wet and strong wrapped around his waist. Tsuyu's tum. She yanked him out of the water and onto the deck of the ship. A moment later, she tossed the screaming Mineta onto the deck beside him. Thanks, Ajui-san. I mean, Tsuyu, Izuku coughed, wiping salt water from his eyes. This is bad. This is bad. This is bad. Mineta was hyperventilating, clutching his head. We're gonna die. Those are real villains. I haven't even touched a boob yet. Izuku ignored him, crawling to the railing to peer over. The water below was rippling. Dozens of villains, shark types, aquatic mutants, divers, were circling the boat. They weren't attacking yet. They were waiting. They've surrounded us, Izuku noted, his voice calm despite the pounding in his chest. They're smart. They know they have the advantage in the water. Why don't they just sink the boat? Tsuyu asked, crouching on the rail. Maybe they want hostages. Mineta wailed. No, Izuku shook his head. They don't know our quirks. That's the key. They warped us randomly. If they knew you were a frog, Tsuyu, they wouldn't have dropped you in the flood zone. They're cautious because they don't know what we can do. Izuku stood up. The water from his costume dripped onto the rusted deck. We have the element of surprise, Izuku said. But only for one strike. Once they realize we're just students, they'll swarm. What can we do? Tsuyu tilted her head. I can jump and stick to walls. My tongue can stretch 20 meters. I have these. Mineta pulled a sticky purple ball from his head. They stick to anything but me. But if I pull too many, I bleed. Sticky balls and a frog. Izuku muttered. He looked at his own hands. And a hydraulic press. Okay, Izuku looked up, his eyes sharp. I have a plan. But it requires perfect timing. The plan. Are you serious? Mineta shrieked. You want me to throw what into the water? Not into the water, Izuku corrected. At the water. You need to create a barrier. Tsuyu, you grab us and jump the second I signal. And you, Midoriya-chan? I'm going to part the seas, Izuku said grimly. He walked to the edge of the boat. The villains below were getting impatient. Hey kids! A shark-faced villain yelled. Come on down! The water's fine. Izuku took a deep breath. He spread his legs for stability. He held up his right hand. He placed his thumb against his middle finger. In the previous timeline, this was a moment of sacrifice. He was prepared to shatter his thumb to create the necessary air pressure. But Izuku had spent the last 2 weeks refining his control. He didn't need to shatter the barrel to fire the gun. He just needed to overcharge the chamber for a microsecond. Hydraulic theory, pressure spike. He closed his eyes. He visualized the tank of One for All. He didn't open the valve to 5%. He wrenched it open to 15%, but only into his fingers. The pain was instant. It felt like his hand was being crushed in a vice. The skin stretched tight, capillaries bursting, turning the flesh an angry purple. Hold it. Contain it. Don't let the bones snap. Mineta! Now! Mineta screamed and unleashed a barrage of purple spheres into the water surrounding the boat. They floated innocuously. Now, Tsuyu! Tsuyu grabbed both boys with her tongue and launched them high into the air. As they ascended, leaving the boat deck, Izuku aimed his throbbing fingers at the center of the water below. Delaware, he snapped. Smash! It wasn't a simple snap. It was a cannon blast of compressed air. Crack boom! The force hit the water surface with the impact of a meteorite. The ocean didn't just splash, it parted. A massive depression formed in the water, the shockwave forcing the liquid outward with tremendous violence. The villains, caught in the sudden displacement, were thrown backward. But as the water rushed back in to fill the void, it created a massive centripetal force, a whirlpool. Whoa! The shark villain screamed as he was sucked in. The swirling water dragged the villains together. And right in the center of that chaos were Mineta's sticky balls. Slap. Stick. Crunch. The villains collided, stuck together by the adhesive spheres, forming a grotesque ball of flailing limbs and fins. It worked! Mineta cried from midair. Good job, Midoriya-chan. Tsuyu said. They landed in the shallow water near the shore of the flood zone. Izuku landed on his feet, stumbling slightly. He clutched his right hand. His thumb and middle finger were swollen, turning a dark violet. They throbbed with a fierce, hot pain. Are you okay? Tsuyu asked, noticing his grimace. Yeah, Izuku gritted his teeth, flexing the fingers. They moved. Stiffly, agonizingly, but they moved. Sprained. Heavy bruising. But nothing broken. I can still fight. This is the difference, Izuku thought, a surge of triumph cutting through the pain. I used to smash, and I still have my hands. We need to get to the entrance, Mineta whispered, hiding behind Tsuyu. We need to get help. No, Izuku looked toward the central plaza. Mr. Aizawa is still fighting. We need to see if he's okay. The central plaza. They crept along the water's edge, hiding behind rocks and decorative foliage. The sounds of battle echoed through the dome, cracking bone, rushing wind, and manic laughter. When they peered over the embankment, the scene was a nightmare. Aizawa was still moving, but he was slowing down. He was surrounded. Dozens of unconscious villains lay around him, a testament to his skill, but the sheer numbers were wearing him down. His hair was falling more often, signaling the intervals between his erasures were getting longer. 23 seconds, a raspy voice counted. Shigaraki stood near the fountain, scratching his neck. 24 seconds. Looks like your eyes are drying out, Eraserhead. Aizawa panted, elbowing a villain in the face. He was exhausted. And now? Shigaraki pointed at the hulking beast standing motionless beside him. Noma, the monster blurred. It was faster than anything Izuku had ever seen. 1 second it was by the fountain, the next it was behind Aizawa. Aizawa turned, his eyes glowing red. He erased the Noma's quirk. The Noma punched him anyway. Crack! Aizawa flew back, skipping across the pavement like a stone. Physical strength, Izuku whispered, horror dawning on him. It's not a quirk enhancement. That thing is just naturally as strong as All Might. Aizawa tried to stand, but the Noma was on him. It grabbed his arm. Snap! Aizawa screamed. A sound that tore at Izuku's soul. The Noma twisted the teacher's arm like a twig, then slammed his face into the concrete. Stop! Mineta whimpered, covering his eyes. We have to run! We have to run! In the original timeline, Izuku was frozen. He was terrified. He watched as Aizawa was tortured, helpless to intervene until the very last second when Tsuyu was threatened. But this Izuku was different. He looked at his bruised hand. He felt the unbroken bones of his legs. I am not a glass cannon. I am a capable asset. Mr. Aizawa is going to die in the next 10 seconds. If I run, he dies. If I fight, maybe he lives. Tsuyu, Izuku whispered, his voice deadly serious. Take Mineta. Get to the stairs. Midoriya-chan? Tsuyu's eyes widened. What are you doing? Buying time. Izuku didn't wait for an argument. He stood up. Full call 5%. The green lightning didn't flicker this time. It roared. The adrenaline in his system pushed the valve open. He felt the power flood his legs, lighter and sharper than ever before. He didn't scream. He didn't announce his presence. He just moved. Down in the plaza, Shigaraki was walking toward the prone form of Aizawa, who was pinned under the Noma. You were cool, Eraserhead, Shigaraki mocked, reaching out a hand. But you're really just a one-trick pony. Now, decay. He reached for Aizawa's face. Whoosh! A blur of green and blue slammed into the space between Shigaraki and Aizawa. It wasn't a punch. It was a dropkick. Izuku caught Shigaraki in the chest, right on the sternum. Gah! The villain leader was launched backward, tumbling end over end until he crashed into the edge of the fountain. The Noma shrieked, a bird-like screech of confusion. It looked down. Its master was gone. In his place stood a boy in a green jumpsuit. Izuku stood over Aizawa. The teacher looked up through a mask of blood and swollen eyelids. Me. Doriya. Aizawa wheezed. Run. I'm not leaving you, Izuku said. He looked up at the Noma. The beast towered over him, a mountain of muscle and death. I can't fight this thing, Izuku analyzed rapidly. It broke Aizawa's arm like paper. If it hits me, I die. I have to be faster. I have to be annoying. Noma! Shigaraki screeched, pulling himself up from the fountain. He was clutching his chest, coughing. Kill the brat. Kill him, the Noma swung. A backhand meant to decapitate. Izuku ducked. He felt the wind pressure of the fist ruffle his hair. It was like standing next to a jet engine. Too fast. Even at 5%, I can barely see it. He rolled between the Noma's legs. He grabbed Aizawa's collar with his good hand. Hold on. Izuku channeled power into his legs. Max torque? He leaped backward, dragging Aizawa with him. He skidded 10 meters away, putting distance between them and the beast. You! Shigaraki scratched his neck, skin flaking off. You hit me. A student hit me, Midoriya. Aizawa coughed, blood bubbling. You irrational fool. I'm being rational, Izuku panted, standing in front of his teacher, fists raised. You're our main tactical asset. If we lose you, we lose the ability to erase the villain's quirks. Protecting you is the highest priority. Nomu, Shigaraki pointed a trembling finger. Crush him. The Noma charged. It was like a freight train. The ground shook with every step. Izuku braced himself. He knew he couldn't stop it. He prepared to dodge, to weave, to die trying. I need a smash. A 100% smash. It's the only way to push it back. He prepared to sacrifice the arm. Just one arm. To save him, he reached for the valve. He prepared to tear it off. Boom! The entrance doors of the USJ exploded. A cloud of dust billowed into the facility. Silence fell over the plaza. Even the Noma paused. From the dust, a figure emerged. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't laughing. He had ripped off his tie. His white shirt was straining against muscles that seemed to be vibrating with fury. I am here! All Might shouted. But there was no joy in it. It was a roar of pure, unadulterated rage. All Might. Izuku breathed, his legs finally trembling. Shigaraki smiled behind his hand mask. Finally. The game begins. The clash of titans.